This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Halliday presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated Weed Whacker Guy. Champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength, Halliday. Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner by knockout is Halliday. Halliday, bring it on.
Taste the Mediterranean at Whole Foods Market with a vibrant selection that captures the flavors of the region. Shop coastal favorites like responsibly farmed whole bronzini and jumbo white shrimp, and pair them with specialty pastas, robust olive oils, and aromatic sauces directly sourced from the Mediterranean. Want a fast and easy dinner? Grab refreshing Greek salads and tortellini from the prepared foods department. Taste the Mediterranean now at Whole Foods Market.
One of the busiest build-ups ever to a Paralympic Games. But finally, let the Games begin. Fingers crossed, hopefully. I'm Michael.
And I'm John, and this is Milano Daily from Anything But Footy. We talk about the Olympics and the Paralympics all the time, not once every 4 years like everybody else does.
Security had to be tightened. Iran pulled out, and only 28 nations actually marched in Verona as the Milano Cortina Winter Paralympics opening ceremony took place.
We'll round up all the headlines and talk through some of the highlights of the ceremony.
Paralympics GB snowboarder Ollie Hill out of the snowboard cross this weekend due to injury on the slopes. We'll look ahead to the competition in tomorrow's News Today.
My name is Davy Zyw. It's an incredible personal achievement, but the achievement I'm sharing with every poor soul who lives with neurological diseases, with MMD.
And Menna Fitzpatrick also out of the downhill. In our news of the Games, we've got the quad god getting an Olympic gong, and Keeley heads up an Olympic-sized team for the World Indoor Athletics Championships for UK Athletics.
This is Milano Daily from Anything But Footy. We are back every day during the Winter Paralympic Games. Download, listen and follow. Well, before we get into that opening ceremony, I'm not sure I've ever known a busier build-up to the Paralympics as far as news stories goes. The Olympics, you always get that build-up, don't you? You always get the bingo card of stories ahead of the Olympics. But normally, things have ironed themselves out a little bit and there's slightly less attention on the paras. I know in the past we've had big stories around would it take place, for example, in Rio. Obviously, There were stories around the COVID Games of Tokyo. But this one just seems, certainly for a Winter Paralympics, to have had more stories in the last week or so than I've ever known. We've had the boycotts that we've been talking about, the opening ceremony, much to discuss there, no shows. You're missing curling stones. I don't know if they've turned up yet, despite your appeals online for them. And all of this, of course, before the big anniversary celebrations of the Winter Games. Only 28 nations actually turned up for the opening ceremony in Verona, and Iran, as we found out just ahead of that opening ceremony, not competing because their athlete found it was unsafe to travel to Italy.
Yeah, as you say, Michael, a special milestone. It should have been. This is the 50th anniversary of the Winter Games, but only 28 of 55 nations actually at that opening ceremony. Yes, there's history. 611 athletes, 55 NPCs, 79 medal events, and beating the previous record of Pyeongchang. And of course, a lot bigger than when the Games started in Sweden in 1976. But Iran will not compete at all at these games due to the ongoing conflict in the Middle East. And they said, as you said there, unsafe to travel. Now, the team only had one athlete, but that's not the point. The actual Iranian flag was removed from the athletes' parade and obviously not included in the list of competing. IPC President Andrew Parsons said before that opening ceremony, it's very disappointing, but the risk was too great. Now, this is the whole point of the Olympic truce that you mentioned a couple of episodes ago. the UN initiative that from a week before the Olympics to a week after the Paralympics, there should be a truce among all nations. It should be peace to allow athletes to play their sport. And this is exactly why the Iranian isn't there, because he can't get to the Paralympics. And that's the whole reason why the truce was set up originally. Now, someone has broken that Olympic truce. Is that Israel? Is that the USA? I don't know. That's for someone else to work out. But Russia got banned for breaking the Olympic truce in 2022. And ironically, some of the nations boycotting the opening ceremony because the Paralympics let them back in for these games. It is a complete and utter mess, I think, and very unlike the IPC. That actually it's normally the IOC who fudge this stuff, but it feels that they're on the wrong side of history at this moment.
Yeah, mess is the right word, isn't it? I think we've just seen that in the build-up to these games. I have a certain degree of sympathy with the IPC. They do not control world events. It wasn't them that decided to take part or start a conflict in the Middle East. And they will probably be thinking, why us, if you like, because this happened a little bit 4 years ago. It's not the same, but it is similar with the invasion of Ukraine, which again happened between the games, between the Olympic Games and the Paralympic Games. And now this conflict, which has come up now in the Middle East, has happened between the Olympics and the Paralympics. The Olympic truce, as far as I can see, is not worth the paper it's written on, and now hasn't been for 4 years. Clearly, the IOC and the IPC are in a really difficult situation because the next host of the Summer Games, Olympics and Paralympics, is the USA. Do you remove the USA from the movement when they are hosting the next games? Can you remove the USA from the movement when not only are they hosting the next games, but their television networks pretty much fund your event? A difficult situation for them, one that I don't know whether they have the answers for. But as I said, I think first and foremost, my sympathies are with the athletes. One Iranian athlete who was hoping to compete at these games. I think it would have been second Paralympic Games appearance for the athlete.
Third, I think. Third
Paralympic Games appearance for the athlete. Has obviously trained and qualified and now doesn't get the opportunity to compete.
Very, very disappointing to see from his point of view. You're right about the Middle East conflict. We will wait and see how that pans out. The Russia decision, as we said yesterday, and as you said on TalkSport, it was an IPC decision that was made, and some people agree with it, and it seems like the majority agree with it, although pretty clear that some of them who were not at the opening ceremony are very still firmly against it. It made the opening ceremony, Michael, a bit flat.
Yeah, it for an event which prides itself on being a parallel games, it didn't feel like a parallel opening ceremony to me. It did not have the glitz, the glamour, and the showbiz of what I watched at the San Siro Stadium a month ago. What we saw there at the start of the Winter Olympics, Andrea Bocelli, everything else, it was, I think everyone agreed, and we definitely spoke at the time on this very podcast, on this platform, about how good we thought that opening ceremony was for the Winter Olympics. It had the stars and Mariah Carey. I think what it did brilliantly was it involved a lot of the athletes across all of the different centres with the parade through Cortina, which I thought was just brilliant. I loved that. It was quite reminiscent, actually, of the opening of the Paralympics in Paris, where they had the athletes parading down the Champs-Elysees. I thought that's a brilliant way to bring supporters and athletes closer together. What we saw in Verona just didn't feel the same. It just didn't feel as big, didn't feel as spectacular. And the fact that obviously there were so few actual marching athletes there, you just didn't feel like they got that moment that we've talked about so much.
Huge cheers for Ukraine. That was audible, that you could hear, and Italy, obviously, as the host nations. Some people are reporting that there were boos for Russia. I think France TV. I thought it was just silence for when Russia walked out, and there were a lot of coverage of it, as you can imagine, because they were flying the flag for the first time since 2014. But I think what was stark, you talked about the San Siro before the Olympics. Everyone was saying, well, they can't fill this stadium. there were a lot of empty seats in Verona, and it's not such a big stadium.
Yeah, it felt at times watching the coverage like there was no one there. It felt like you were watching. Do you know what it reminded me of at times? Like when we used to watch sporting events during COVID,
Right.
And there was no crowds there. That is what it felt like. I mean, there were crowds there because obviously on the television pictures you could see that. You did see a lot of empty seats, which obviously doesn't help. And there's many and various reasons why you have empty seats. Delegations might not turn up. It's not just a case of maybe tickets haven't been sold. Television companies say we need all those seats because of camera positions and then change their mind at a later date. Many reasons, as I say, why there could be empty seats, but there just didn't seem to be that level of atmosphere. And I did wonder at times, sort of catching some of the TV coverage as I was able to do, whether those microphones, those kind of atmosphere microphones were somehow turned down or turned off because the organisers didn't want people at home to hear big reactions to big countries like Russia and Belarus, or were there going to be boos for the USA? Were there going to be boos for Israel? At times, it just felt to me like they just switched that ambient noise off.
Absolutely. And I think Paralympics GB did a great job. Menna Fitzpatrick, Scott Mina. I mean, Scott Mina got a message from H here. It's a bit like H. So Prince Harry obviously sent him a video. They obviously know each other from army days back in the day. That was on Channel 4. If you're not listening in the UK, it was a bit like Bond. My name's Bond, like you and Cortina, but no, this was H.
I thought Paralympics GB did the best that they could do with the hand that they were dealt. I'm glad that they made the decision to take part in the opening ceremony because I think that's the only fair thing to do for the athletes. So I'm glad that Menna and Scott, albeit virtually and pre-recorded, got their opportunity, surrounded by their teammates, to fly their flag. I think Paralympics GB made the right choice in taking part for their athletes. I understand why other nations didn't, but I think for Great Britain, it was the right decision. And also the fact that Phil Smith, chef de mission, and the rest of the delegation have said quite openly and told us and told everybody else, and they were part of that TV coverage the other night. I saw Phil speaking to our Sky Sports News colleague, Geraint Hughes, as well. We voted against the inclusion of the Russian and Belarusian athletes. It's not our choice that they are here. We would rather they weren't here, but they are here. So all we can do now as a sports team, and this is what Phil kept saying, isn't it? As a sports team and as a sports organisation, all we can do now is make sure that our athletes get to the field of play with the best possible chance of succeeding.
And I agreed with the IPC president, Andrew Parsons, who said 4 years ago, I was horrified at what was happening in the world. Unfortunately, the situation has not improved. And I think that two sentences kind of sum it up really about where we got to with that opening ceremony. You're a commentator, Michael. Sometimes less is more. Isn't it? You don't need to talk all the time about everything, particularly on television when we can see pictures. And if you don't know that Iran had already pulled out, maybe you shouldn't be commentating.
Yeah, I thought there was a couple of things in the television coverage, the television commentary, where they said they were talking, weren't they, about whether Iran would march or wouldn't march, and I think we'd already knew by that point that they were pulling out. Yes, television commentary, radio commentary, very different disciplines. On television, sometimes just let the pictures do the talking, unless you can add something to them.
Absolutely well said. Just on the teams, China have the most delegates, the most number of athletes, 70. Of course, they topped the table in Beijing 4 years ago. USA, 68. Canada, 46. Hosts Italy have 42 athletes. And for a fourth successive Paralympic Winter Games, a record number of women will be competing. A total of 160 female competitors will compete against all six sports. That's an 18% increase on the previous record from Beijing.
And look out for that Chinese team, because I think they won. It was around about a third of something, all the medals at the last games, and they probably will do again here. And just have a little look at China's movement, if you like, through Paralympic sport, because it wasn't that long ago there was no interest from the Chinese. And then all the other nations, including Paralympics GB, have now had to adapt to the fact that China send a huge team with huge medal opportunities. So all those kind of medal targets, medal ambitions from games gone by, China and their participation in the way they participate now has just sort of ripped that up, I think, for a lot of the teams taking part. Anyway, let's move on to our news from the games now. The warm weather conditions in Cortina are impacting on the preparations for the Winter Paralympics. Training and official practice for the men's and the women's snowboard and downhill skiing has been cancelled. Safety concerns have been cited. Several athletes have been injured, including Paralympics GB bronze medalist from 4 years ago, Ollie Hill. Now, we were told that he fell during practice on Thursday. He says he's okay, but due to concussion rules and the protocol there, won't now be racing in the snowboard cross event this weekend. He also says, wear a helmet.
Did you see the picture? Or did you see the picture of the helmet? It was literally cracked in half. It's on Instagram. It's worth going on finding Ollie Hill. That is why, kids, always wear a helmet, whatever kind of sport you're doing. And even Ollie saying, you never really realise until you need it.
I'm quite squeamish, and I was told about the picture before it sort of came on my feed, so I've deliberately avoided it. It's understood that all competitors will get to race an amended course tomorrow before the first races take place to ensure the athletes are safe. It comes to Zach Miller, the two-time Paralympian and world champion athlete, crashed in the conditions and, of course, getting seriously hurt as well. We told you yesterday the warm weather was causing some problems. 9 and sunny. Feels like 12 degrees in the current climate in Cortina, apparently. I used to be a weather man very occasionally on the telly back in the day. I used to do it better than I just did then. More snowboarding coming up. We wish Ollie well, of course. Hope he is back for that banked slalom.
And the other breaking news last night, of course, is that Menna Fitzpatrick and Katie Guest not competing in the women's downhill. That became apparent. I think Phil Smith, you mentioned, talking to Channel 4 just after the opening ceremony, confirming that Menna, who has been in practice for downhill for the last couple of days, I mentioned it got cancelled, as Michael said. She's decided to pull out of the skiing on day one of these games. Neil Simpson and Andrew Simpson and Fred Warburton and James Hannon will be going in the men's, but Menna and Katie, we expect to see them in the Super G on Tuesday. Now, a big win for Joe Butterfield and Jason Keane, Team JJ, as they're being known, for Paralympics GB. They moved into the semi-final positions of the mixed doubles in curling. Admittedly, joint second with 5 other teams, but they're still in that position at the moment. You've got to be in it to win it, and it's 2 wins on the trot for the pair. A nip and tuck 5-4 victory over the USA, a point on the last and 8th end, securing their second win. So China, Japan and Latvia all won yesterday, leaving the Chinese top. Michael mentioned them. 4 wins out of 4 already in the mixed doubles. Estonia, Great Britain, Japan, USA and Korea are now all joint second, with Italy and Latvia at the bottom of the table so far with 1 each. Now, Great Britain face Japan next. And Jo said on her partnership with Jason, we know how to encourage each other and support each other when we need it. They do seem like they have a very, very good relationship working together. And this is their message on Paralympics GB Instagram.
It's Team JJ here, so just want to say thanks to everyone back at home for the support. Come on, Team JJ.
We had our second win there and we're riding high. Thanks for the support, everyone. Cheers.
And as we say, roll on.
American figure skater Ilya Malinin won the Milano Cortina 2026 Fair Play Award after helping the USA to win the team event. He was chosen by the IOC for his display of profound sportsmanship during the men's individual event. What they mean by that is the fact that he went from the gold medal position to finishing 8th, but rather than stamp his feet and throw a tantrum, what he did was actually warmly embrace and celebrate the gold medalist Mikhail Shidorov. That is the true Olympic spirit, the quad god. I was lucky enough to see him actually skate when I was in Milan. Absolutely fantastic, but that was not his night, but he has picked up an award for the way he behaved. This is Milano Daily from Anything But Footy. Tomorrow's news today for Paralympics GB and our other news from the games coming up.
It's tax season, and at LifeLock, we know you're tired of numbers. But here's a big one you need to hear. Billions. That's the amount of money in refunds the IRS has flagged for possible identity fraud. Now here's another big number. 100 million. That's how many data points LifeLock monitors every second. If your identity is stolen, we'll fix it guaranteed. One last big number. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast for the threats you can't control. Terms apply.
This is Milano Daily from Anything But Footy. We are back. We are going to be here every day during the Winter Paralympic Games. And every day we'll be bringing you TNT, tomorrow's news today. Now, the finals of the snowboard cross will take place on Sunday. So that's day 2 of the Games. Seeding is taking place today, assuming that the weather forecast from Cortina that we mentioned earlier is okay. And with Ollie Hill out through those concussion protocols, Paralympics GB will have 2 boarders in action. James Barnes-Miller in 2018 was the first snowboarder to represent Paralympics GB after the sport was added to the program in Sochi. So he's at his 3rd Games. And we've also got 38-year-old Davy Zyw, who makes his debut, the first snow sport athlete living with MND, motor neurone disease, which is a degenerative neurological condition. And he is competing, we think, history-making, the first ever athlete, as I say, living with that disease to ever compete at the Games. Now, this is snowboard cross, which is equivalent of what we saw Charlotte Banks and Hugh Nightingale win gold on snow for Team GB doing. So it's a race against fellow competitors down the slopes. And I had the privilege to speak with Davy.
It's been amazing. It's emotions are high. I'm on absolute cloud 9. I've invested so much time and energy and emotion and time away from my young family. The things I've missed, living with MMD. We've all got time pressures on our lives. But I suppose I feel that more acutely knowing what I live with and what I'm challenged by day to day. And the fact the snowboarding, I've had a lot of fun. It's been stressful at times, but I've had a lot of fun. But it's taken me away from my wee boy, my family, over the last year of competitions. And the fact that we can celebrate it together in Cortina, it means more in the world. It's beyond words.
And you said you're Edinburgh originally. Tell us kind of where you grew up and how it all started.
Yeah, so I'm Edinburgh born and bred, and I grew up snowboarding up on the dry slope. My dear granny lived minutes from the slope, so when most of my school pals were playing football or rugby after school, my granny was dropping off to hungry freestyle snowboarders at the dry slope, and we spent, 2 or 3 evenings a week. All our summer holidays were spent just hitting and hiking this dry slope jump over and over again. Tens of thousands of times we used to hit this jump. So freestyle was very much my introduction to snowboarding and hitting jumps. I got to a level after I left school where I was never the best, but I was competing internationally in slope style and big air, and then rail competitions too. So it's always been snowboarding's been a real passion for me, and for the last 25 years. I'm getting old now. So the love of snowboarding was started in Edinburgh.
Yeah, I was going to ask, is the Hill End dry slope still there, still active? What would you say
Absolutely,
to the people?
It's and the crown's been taken off it. It was the longest dry ski slope in Europe for a long time. It's now not. But the jump slope is great. You drop quite a lot of vertical if you get to the top left. So no, it's an amazing melting pot of talent and nurturing talent, and for all ages. So no, I owe a lot of my life to that those Pentland Hills and Hill End. The views of Edinburgh up there are spectacular. I used to enjoy going up around fireworks night, Guy Fawkes, and seeing there. And then we used to hit the jump with the sound of with the backdrop of all the fireworks going across Edinburgh.
And what would be your message to young boys, young girls there today, or in their half-term Easter holidays? Obviously, you've done it to this level. You're at the Paralympics. That's as good as you can get. But just go and enjoy it and have fun. Is that the message?
Absolutely. I've been, everyone in the Paralympic circuit, whether you're a snowboarder, or curler, or a skier, they've gone through their own, the human story, the human endeavor. These athletes have gone above and beyond just to work and get through the competition circuits to qualify for the games. It's an inspiring group of humans to be associated with. But I'd say every single one of us, speaking for me anyway, I start with it because I loved something and I wanted to do it more and more. And that burning desire of fun and creativity and speed has propelled me all around the world, and has now just earned me a place at the Paralympic Games. So I'm delighted. But for everyone, for every young, young, hungry, ambitious young skier or snowboarder, you've got to love it to do it. And if you love something, you've got to work hard at it.
Have you been to Cortina? Because I'm just back from Cortina for the first time. It is stunning.
I can't wait. I'm lucky enough. I've got family in Italy. I used to work in Italy a lot, so I'm very familiar with a lot of their peninsula. But the Dolomites is a big black hole for me. So I can't. I've seen photos, of course. I can't wait to get up there and taste that mountain air.
What for you would be a measure of success from the games?
Honestly, by being on the starting lineup, I'm just delighted to be in the mixer. After the last 15 months of being involved in the competitive circuit, I've been blown away with the professionalism, the competitiveness, the talent of the riders that I'm going to be competing against. Am I a medal contender on paper? Perhaps not, but I'm happy to be in the mixer, and I'm going to give it my 100%.
Giving it 100%, Davy Zyw speaking to Michael, who got his Cortina mention in there as well. Have you been to Cortina? When they spoke before the games in Edinburgh. Good luck to Davy and to James. Round 1, quarters, semi-finals, hopefully that final all tomorrow. And we'll hear from the snowboard banked slalom athletes making their debuts at the games later in the week. Nina Sparks, Britain's first ever female para snowboarder, and Matt Hamilton as well.
Now, in other news away from the winters, the big news from British athletics, they're sending a 29-strong team to the World Indoor Championships in Poland later on this month, led by a host of British medalists, including Keely Hodgkinson, the indoor world record holder over 800 metres, Georgia Hunter-Bell back running the 1500 after winning the 800 silver outdoors last summer. Josh Kerr is competing in the 3,000 metres, the world and Olympic medalist. Dina Asher-Smith back indoors for the first time since 2016 over the 60-metre sprint, along with Amy Hunt, a world outdoor silver medalist, as we know, over 200 metres, and Jeremiah Azu, the defending champion in the 60 metres, also part of the team. It's a really strong-looking Great Britain and Northern Ireland team for those World Indoor Championships.
Yeah, other names include 2024 world champion Molly Caudry in the pole vault. You've got 2023 world medalist Ben Patterson in the 800 metres. We don't have the defending indoor 400 metre world champion Amber Anning, though. She has said that she is concentrating on getting herself ready for the Commonwealth Games and the European Championships outdoors this season, which I think is probably right. She's kind of been there, done that. You're the world champion. I know Jeremiah wants to go and defend his title, but the sprints are slightly different from the 400 metres. It's all in Poland, March the 20th to the 22nd. Quite the preparation for the European outdoors in Birmingham and those Commonwealth Games as well.
Yeah, it's the first, isn't it, of the major championships this year. And I mean, I think we've already heard and we've spoken that Keely Hodgkinson said she might now not do the Commonwealth Games. We have heard from other people, the likes of Georgia Hunter-Bell and Dina Asher-Smith, saying that they want to try and do all three. I mean, that would be an absolutely fantastic achievement. Obviously, Amber, as you say, has made the decision, went there, did it last year, probably don't need to do it this time around. I will just target the two outdoors. But for others like Georgia and Josh Shawley as well, you know, Scotland, home crowd and all the rest of it, up against Jake Whiteman potentially as well. I mean, that could just be enormous for the organisers of the Commonwealth Games. So, you know, the organisers of Glasgow 2026, I think they'll be disappointed with Keely's news. Although, you know, I still think at this stage, don't entirely write it off. There's still a lot that could happen between now and then. We know that we saw her in Birmingham, but I think they'll be delighted that so many other athletes are saying, you know, they want to try and do all the major championships this year. Because after all, isn't that what it's about? You know, big crowds, chance to compete at home and chance to win a medal.
And And also, we've seen with the news that Ollie Hill is missing his Paralympic event today. Menna Fitzpatrick has postponed hers, that with injuries and stuff, you just don't know what's around the corner. If you're fit and healthy, surely you've got to go for these championships and take your moment.
Yep. And we'll finish with a bit more Olympic news that just really sort of highlights how short the Olympic career is, even when you've had a long Olympic career, if that makes sense, because British boxer Rosie Eccles says that she is not going to be going to the LA Olympics now. She's leaving the GB boxing program. The Welsh light middleweight is, though, going to have one final hurrah and compete for Wales at the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow. The 29-year-old won gold in Birmingham in 2022, silver on the Gold Coast. Went there, you know.
Have you been there?
I've been there in 2018 before joining the British squad in Sheffield. She missed out on a place in Tokyo through injury. She was so close to being on that team. Didn't go her way when she made her Olympic debut in Paris in 2024. So many questions about the judging. As always, at the Olympic boxing, Rosie Eccles missed out. She was trying to go again. That would have been a third cycle that she was aiming for, which is a long, long time, especially in the sport of boxing. GB Boxing's performance director, Rob McCracken, said, Rosie's been a brilliant boxer for us who always gave her all. She's an absolute credit to herself, her family, GB Boxing and Welsh sport. Good luck, Rosie, in Glasgow at the Commonwealth Games, and someone I think has got a lot to give with whatever she chooses to do next.
You'll be there covering it.
Well, hopefully, yeah. All being well, I can add Glasgow to that list of Cortina and Gold Coast as places.
I have been to Glasgow, to be fair.
Oh, right, okay. Well, let's stop the talking then, because the sport is starting. We will have the very latest every day on Milano Daily from the Winter Paralympic Games in Milano and Cortina. Do check out our socials as well. You can find all the latest news there. You can also get in touch with us via our website. Got some new pictures on the website. Go and check them out, anythingbutfooty.com. You can listen to the Spotify Olympics music playlist that we've got live as well. This is Milano Daily from Anything But Footy.
How many discounts does USAA Auto Insurance offer? Too many to say here. Multi-vehicle discount, safe driver discount, new vehicle discount, storage discount, legacy.
How many discounts will you stack up? Tap the banner or visit usaa.com/auto discounts. Restrictions apply.
I'm here on the job site with Dale, who's a framing contractor.
Hey, good morning.
Dale traded up to Geico Commercial Auto Insurance for all his business vehicles. We're here where he needs us most.
Yep, they sure are.
We make it easy for him to save on all his insurance needs, all in one place, with coverage that fits his business and bottom line. Oh, I shouldn't have looked down.
It's all right.
We're so far up here.
Look at me. Take a deep breath.
No, I'm good. So good.
Get a commercial auto insurance quote today at geico.com and see how much you could save. It feels good to Geico.